Please subscribe, like and share my channel. London by William Blake. I wandered through each charted street, near where the charted Thames does flow, a mark in every face I meet, marks of weakness, marks of woe. The speaker walks the designated street of London. This walk brings the speaker to the river Thames, which seems to have been routed for it as it flows through the city. The speaker sees signs of resignation and sadness on the faces of every person the speaker passes by. पोइट लंदन की निर्दिष्ट सड़कों पर टहलता है। यह चलना पोइट को टेम्स नदी के पास लाता है, जो लगता है कि इसके लिए इसका मार्ग तय किया गया है, क्योंकि यह पूरे शहर में बहती है। पोइट को हर उस व्यक्ति के चेहरों पर इस्तीफे और उदासी के निशान दिखाई देते हैं जिनसे पोइट गुजरता है। In this stanza, the speaker provides the setting and tone. The setting can of course be derived from the title, but the first stanza also reveals that the speaker is walking down a street. He says that he wandered down each charted street. The term wander gives some insight into the speaker as well. He appears to be not quite sure of himself and a bit misguided, if not entirely lost. The use of the term charted also suggests that the street he walks are controlled and rigid. He is not walking in a free, open field, but a confined, rigid, mapped out area. The speaker will expound upon this idea later on in London. As he walks, he notices something about the faces of the people walking by. There seem to be the marks of weariness in them all. He describes their faces as having weakness and woe. This sets up the tone as melancholy. The gloom and the sadness seems to seep from the speaker's voice as he describes the passers-by. In every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice, in every band, the mind-forced manacles I hear. This pain is also heard by the speaker in crying males as well as in frightened newborn babies. Indeed, in every voice of the city, in every law or restriction on the population of London, the speaker can feel the feelings of those afflicted by city life. इस दर्द को पोइट भी सुनता है, रोने वाले पुरुषों के साथ साथ भयभीत नवजात शिशुओं में भी। वास्तव में शहर की हर आवाज़ में, लंदन की आबादी पर हर कानून या प्रतिबंध में, पोइट शहर के जीवन से पीड़ित लोगों की भावनाओं को महसूस कर सकता है। While the first stanza sets up the tone of London, the second stanza gives some insight into the speaker's melancholy feelings towards the people he watches pass him by. The speaker reveals that from the cry of the newborn infant to the cry of the full-grown man, he hears the mind-forced manacles. This gives insight into his despairing view of mankind. The manacles are shackles or some kind of chain that keeps a person imprisoned. The fact that these chains are mind-forced reveals that they are metaphorical chains created by the people's own ideas. The use of the word ban reveals that these manacles are placed there by society. A ban, of course, is a restriction given by law. The speaker's use of words such as charted, ban, and manacles reveals his belief that society metaphorically imprisons people. Suddenly, it becomes apparent that the thoughts, pressures, and ideals of society are under scrutiny here. How the chimney-sweepers cry, every blackening church appals, and the hapless soldier's sigh runs in blood down palace walls. The speaker hears the cries of the young chimney-sweepers whose grief puts church officials to shame, thinking of the unfortunate British soldiers dying in vain. The speaker imagines their blood flowing through the walls of a palace. पोइट युवा चिमनी स्वीपरों का रोना सुनता है, जिसका दुख चर्च के अधिकारियों को शर्मसार करता है। दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण ब्रिटिश सैनिकों के व्यर्थ मरने के बारे में सोचकर पोइट कल्पना करता है कि उनका खून एक महल की दीवारों से बह रहा है। In this stanza of London, the speaker digs even deeper into the reason for his feelings toward humanity. He implies that the shackles worn by the people and inflicted by society have some disastrous results. He begins with the chimney sweeper. The chimney sweeper was one of the poorest of society. His life expectancy was threatened because of his line of work. He was consistently dirty and sick. Those of the lowest class were forced into this kind of work in order to provide for their families. Then the speaker criticizes the church, calling it blackening and claiming that even the church appals at the chimney sweeper. Often the chimney sweepers were just children. They were small enough to fit down the chimneys. These children were often orphaned children, and the church was responsible for them. This explains why the poet ties the chimney sweepers with the blackening church. The speaker then turns his attentions to the hapless soldier. He has already criticized society, pointed out the misfortunes of the poor and the hypocrisy of the church, and now he will also criticize the government by suggesting that the soldiers are the poor victims of a corrupt government. He reveals his feelings toward war by describing the blood that runs down the palace walls. The palace, of course, is where royalty would have lived. Thus, the speaker accuses the higher up people in his society of spilling the blood of the soldiers in order to keep their comfort of living in a palace. But most through midnight streets I hear how the youthful harlot's curse blast the newborn infant's tear and blights with plagues the marriage-hearse. Most of all, the speaker hears the cries of young prostitutes in the middle of the night, who swear and curse at their condition. In turn, this pitiful voice brings sorrow to their tearful newborn babies. The speaker also imagines this sound in what the speaker calls the marriage-hearse, a surreal fantasy vehicle that moves love and death together. सबसे अधिक पोएट आधी रात को युवा वेश्याओं के रोने की आवाज़ सुनता है, जो उनकी स्थिति पर कसम खाता है और शाप देती है। बदले में यह दयनीय आवाज़ उनके अश्रुपूर्ण नवजात बच्चों के लिए दुख लाती है। पोएट इस ध्वनि की भी कल्पना करता है जिसे कवि द मैरिज हॉर्स कहता है, एक असली कल्पना वाला वाहन जो प्रेम और मृत्यु को एक साथ ले जाता है। In the final stanza, the speaker reveals how the corruptness of society attacks innocence. He says that he hears the youthful harlot's curse. The idea of a youthful harlot suggests the level of poverty and corruption, that a girl who was yet a youth would be involved in prostitution. Then things become even more interesting as the speaker reveals the object of the harlot's cursing. She curses at the tears of a newborn baby. This is the ultimate attack upon innocence. The speaker does not reveal whether the harlot is the mother of the baby or not, but he does imply that rather than comforting a crying infant, she curses it. This reveals the hardened heart of the harlot, which represents the hardened heart of society at large. While the innocent shed tears, the perverted attack them. The last line of London reveals the speaker's thoughts on marriage as well. The harlot apparently has blighted the marriage-hearse. She has deranged marriage by having sold her body before ever entering into the marriage union. Although the speaker believes that the harlot has somehow damaged marriage, he also reveals his beliefs about marriage in the first place. The fact that he calls it a marriage hearse reveals that he views marriage as death. Overall, the poem has criticized society, the church, prostitution, and even marriage. The innocent baby shedding tears represent those who are innocent in the world. They are few and they are scoffed at. They are also infants and are not left to be innocent for long. Their innocence is blasted by the cry of the perverted. Literally, this poem is rather easy to understand. It is clear that it is a social and economic protest, but the poem is more complicated than this, for the mind-forced manacles must be approached on the allegorical and anagogical levels. We have ourselves forced these evils. In 18th century, reason was important in exercising tyranny, and hence mind-forced manacles. Reason, nature and society, which are highly valued in that age, have forced their own tyrannies. These are the triple goddess of destruction. Everyone and everything, the streets and the river, are charted. That is used commercially. The word ban may refer to Pitt's ban on people's liberties. The nation is sick as weaknesses, voy and fear bite it. The child chimney-sweeper, the adult soldier, the young prostitute are living testimony to the neglect of Christian idols and human personal relationships. Blake saw marriage as an institution invented by fallen men. Like any other institutions, also limits freedom. Therefore, he feels marriage as a hearse.